don't necessarily like to start my story by saying up front, I was adopted, but it's so paramount to and key to my story. When I was born, my mother had come to Queensland to have me, and she left me here, and it took a number of weeks before I was adopted by a farming family here in Queensland. And I grew up on a farm in a probably upper middle class farming family. Went to a little country school, and I think life was pretty sweet really. But when I was 9, my dad, he dropped dead of a heart attack suddenly, and everything changed for me then, I think. My mum had to move to a big city, and I went to a big school and was very, very overwhelmed. And looking back, I guess I can see now how just the rejection of being adopted, while I was loved and nurtured in my family, that sense of not really belonging, not feeling like I fitted in properly, not knowing whose I really was, led to a lot of the decisions I made later in life. And then I went to a private girls' school. Life was certainly different there for me than it had been growing up. And I married young, and life kind of went on from there. So, as I said, I was married young, and that marriage did not last very long. I think I could probably stretch it out to an 18-month marriage. And then I found myself alone and just so uncertain of the future. So uncertain of who I was, whether anybody would love me. I struggled with being accepted and just desperately needed to be chosen. And it was in this sort of season where I'd just finished a marriage at the ripe old age of 21, walking down the street, and I saw a sign that said, "Do you want to know what the future holds?" And I just thought, heck yeah, I want to know what the future holds, because in my mind, I couldn't see a future. I'd managed to lose every single person that I ever cared about. And so I walked up the stairs and started my journey with the occult just by simply having a reading by a lady in town here. So at first, it was very exciting for me because this lady was able to tell me things that she probably shouldn't have known, and I didn't know how she knew that. I'd grown up in as I said, a middle class kind of family, but I'd grown up in a Baptist church. I'd given my life to Jesus when I was a child. And so for me, I kind of had this inner gut feeling that this was kind of probably not the right thing to be doing, but it intrigued me. It intrigued me, and these people kind of, they bought into my needs. They knew that I needed to be successful and I needed to be loved and accepted, and so they invited me to be part of the occult, and this lady was willing to train me to be a psychic as well. And so just needing so much for someone to see something in me that they loved and desired and wanted led me to get heavily involved in this. And you know, it was okay for a while. It seemed a very powerful thing to do. It gave me a sense of strength and importance, but it got wildly out of control one night. I know I'm not going to go into that story today, but I just really had no concept, I guess, of how dangerous what I was doing was spiritually. That people's lives were being manipulated and affected by what I was doing. And that's when I decided that I really needed to change. I had really scared myself. So I guess the journey to freedom for me, it was almost instantaneous. Sitting in my lounge room one night, I had a very scary spiritual experience, and I heard the voice of the Jesus that I knew growing up saying to me, "Come to the light." And so I made a decision that night that I was going to turn my back on all these demonic practices that I was doing and give my life back to the God who loved me and overwhelmingly had never ever forsaken me in all of that. I used to say to him at night, "Are you there?" And God would always answer me, "I'm here." And I would put my hand up and say, "You just stay there until I'm ready for you." It astounds me to this day that he stayed there and waited for me to finish meddling in the mess that I was in. By the time I got out, I was fairly independent in what I was doing. So there was no sort of accountability factor or anything. And so I literally just stopped doing what I was doing. And I remember actually seeing the lady who trained me once, months later, and she sort of waved and smiled, and obviously she knew that I wasn't doing that anymore and that I had given my life back to Jesus and I was back in church. And so, yeah, it was relatively easy at that point. I do think though, if I'd have stayed around there any much longer, I might have actually been so far in that I couldn't get out. It was a scary place to be, that's for sure. My life now is rather interesting. Since that time I've worked in ministry probably ever since then, working with people who struggle with all types of addictions. I'm now a hospital chaplain, visiting the sick in hospital. I've just become a grandma. I've been married for 15 years now. And I think people say they're expecting to hear, "Oh, like life's amazing now," and life kind of is amazing, but it's still life. It's it's a roller coaster ride sometimes, life, and I guess there's ups, there's downs, there's times when we get frustrated and there's times when we get disappointed. But I guess now I have this grounded stability in my life with Jesus that I longed for so much, and I found that. I found my identity, I guess. I found who I was and who I was meant to be. I guess the message that I have is, it's a long and complicated message, but it's also simple. We as human beings crave and desire to belong. And my prayer for you would be that you would know that you have a Saviour who entirely loves you and a place that you can belong. The things that we do sometimes in search of belonging, we can look back on it and think, I would not want my children doing that. I wouldn't want my grandchildren doing that. And so that would be my message. Know that you are eternally loved by God, and if you seek Him, you will find Him.